Alright guys, what is going on? Fly here and welcome to my channel in the last video in this series. If you have been here for the whole series, I thank you so much as it means the world to me in terms of support and feedback. We have a lot to cover in this video as so many new planes are being added to the British tree. So just some rules of engagement before we begin. I will not be covering variants to a degree. So if it's a cool variant, like in the sense of new guns, 40 mils, etc., then I will. But if it just has like a new engine or wheel covers, then I'm going to try to stick away from those just for time's sake. Alright guys, here we go. The first two planes that are going to be released for the British tree are the Hurricane Mark IIC and the Hurricane Mark IV. I chose these variants because they are going to be a whole different experience from what we are used to with the current Hurricanes in the game. And that is beast firepower. Now the one in game has 1230 cals. I'm not discounting that armament, but with those guns, you need a lot of time on target to do any real damage. However, with the Mark IIC being added, you will have 420 mils and bomb capabilities of 230 kilograms. And if that's not enough firepower, the Hurricane Mark IV will have 240 mils. That's right, 240 mils. This plane's going to Shrek. I'm so excited for this plane. Additional armament that it has 230 cals to help it aim the two big 40s. I think that's pretty cool. Next up, we are going to cover some of the new twin-engine planes. First in line is the Whirlwind, which was the Royal Air Force first single-seated twin-engine cannon fighter. The thing about this plane is that it was actually pretty solid when it was tested, as it was one of the fastest aircraft in service when it flew in the late 1930s. However, it had many problems with its Rolls-Royce Peregrine engines, and by the time it was ready for it to do its duty, many other planes had taken its spot. The Welkin, which was an extremely high altitude fighter, it was said to be able to operate in the stratosphere, and the word Welkin means the vault of heaven. That is badass. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait to save a Welkin and have him say, "Gee, thanks Fly," and I'll be like, "Welcome, Welkin." That's a bad joke. Anyways, the Welkin was built in response to the modified Junkers 86P, which could fly almost 10,000 feet higher than the B-29. By the time the Welkin was ready to take to the skies, the Luftwaffe was no longer conducting high altitude missions, and this was mainly because of the highly successful modified Supermarine Spitfire. And therefore only 77 of these aircrafts were ever built. Still an amazing plane due to its altitude performance. And now on to the last new twin-engine fighter, and the one I'm most excited about, the de Havilland Hornet. One of the most noticeable things I saw right off the bat at looking at this plane is that it looks like a more sleek ME-410. Anyways, this might get me in trouble, but this is pretty much the Mosquito's big brother. A super fast top speed of 760 kilometers an hour and an armament of 420 mils and two 454 kilogram bombs. This plane will be a high tier contender. The Fumar, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but the Fumar was a carrier-borne fighter aircraft. This plane looks strangely out of place for being a fighter if you ask me. First of all, it's a huge plane. Second, all of that glass for its cockpit led me to believe it was some sort of bomber, having in mind the Dauntless or the B-5N2. But anyways, this was a fighter aircraft that took its first role in Malta, and it was able to achieve 16 victories, shooting down 10 Italian bombers and 6 fighters. Ooh, Barracuda! You guys like that singing? I know you did. Okay, well, I'm going to apologize right now, but I had to do it. Timeless song. Alright, but the Barracuda was a dive/torpedo bomber that had a pretty unique design. It had shoulder-mounted wings and a tail to follow. It could carry one 735 kilogram torpedo or 6 110 kilogram bombs. It had a defense armament of 230 cals. So with all these new carrier-borne planes being added, I'm sure that we are going to have some new RB modes added for battles against some German battleships. The Barracuda had a major role as a dive bomber in crippling the German battleship Tirpitz with 14 direct hits. Now, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce the German battleship correctly. The Germans is hard. So. The Seafire. So this was basically a Spitfire converted for carrier-based operations. It was fitted with an A-framed arrestor hook and had folding wings, thus to make more room on the carrier for more planes. So as I was researching this plane, I came across a funny/annoying thing that happened as this plane was being produced. As 50 folding wing Seafires were being delivered, Winston Churchill sent a note stating, and I quote, "I regard it as of very great importance that the production of Fumars should be kept going." So basically, after all this work to modify and make the Spitfire Seafire ready, Churchill canceled the whole production. I think this is mainly due to the fact that the Royal Air Force needed as many fighters, aka Spitfires, to defend the homeland from the German bombings. The Firebrand was a single-engine strike fighter. It was originally designed purely as a fighter, but the plane's poor performance led it to be redesignated as a strike fighter to take advantage of its load-carrying capabilities. Now, to elaborate on its load-carrying capabilities, this plane could carry one 840 kilogram torpedo, and I don't know if these are together or not, but even separate it's still impressive, 16 rockets and two 910 kilogram bombs. That's a ton of weight for a single engine plane. Man, British people and their fire names. Next up, the Firefly. This was a successor to the Flumar in every way, and actually, I'm really excited about this aircraft as it boasts an awesome armament. It has 420 mils, and I think how the other loadout will work is that either you could equip 8 rockets or 2 454 kilogram bombs. In my eyes, this will be like the British BTD or B7A2, if you will. The thing I think that will make this aircraft fun to use is that it has low airspeed, so it might be able to get in lower matchmaking. Hopefully. Next up is the Verne. This plane looks so sleek and almost like a shark, but that's just me. The reason for the sleek looking nose is because this plane's engine is located behind the pilot to give the pilot the best possible visibility for carrier operations. Like, can you guys imagine how hard it was to land the Corsair with that big radial in front of you? Anyways, this was a strike aircraft, so speed wasn't its best attribute, only topping out at 616 kilometers an hour, but it does have 2 props on it that contra-rotate, which is pretty sweet. Now this plane has so much hype. The Sea Fury. This was the last propeller-driven fighter to serve with the Royal Navy, as well as it was one of the fastest piston engine aircrafts ever built. The Sea Fury was developed from the Tempest. However, the Sea Fury was much lighter, using parts from the Tempest, but were significantly modified. The Sea Fury tops out at 740 kilometers an hour, and as many British fighters, it is armed with 420 mils. Alright guys, now we are stepping into jet fighter territory, starting off with the Royal Navy side. The Hawker Seahawk, which was a British single-engine jet fighter which flew in 1947. It had an armament of 420 mils and either 20 rockets or 4 227 kilogram bombs, and with a top speed of 965 kilometers an hour, this would be a pretty fun jet to use. The de Havilland Sea Venom, which was a post-war carrier-capable jet. This was developed from the Royal Air Force Venom, but we'll cover that in a bit. This aircraft had folding wings, a tail hook, and a stronger undercarriage for harder landings. Also, this plane had a modified canopy to allow for underwater ejections. This plane has a decent top speed of 927 kilometers an hour, as well as a default guns of 420 mils and room for 8 rockets or 2 450 kilogram bombs. The Supermarine Attacker, which was the Royal Navy's first jet fighter. It looks pretty advanced, not taking into account the wings, but the intakes remind me of the F-4 Phantoms and many other second-gen fighters. This plane should be the first aircraft you get on the Royal Navy's tree when stepping into the jet era, in my opinion, as the performance is pretty good at 950 kilometers an hour with 420 mils and no room for ordnance. Now onto the Royal Air Force new jets, and probably one of the most anticipated jets in the whole game. But starting out, the de Havilland Venom. Now this plane will be max tiered in my opinion, as its top speed is 1,030 kilometers an hour and it has the same rate of climb as the F-86 Sabre. Now with that taken into account, I hope the Venom has the same turning characteristics as the Vampire, because if this plane has both great rate of climb and turning capabilities, then this jet will be very enjoyable to use. Now the most anticipated jet fighter in the game, the Hawker Hunter F1. Now this plane is sexy, beautiful design from the cockpit to the tail, swept wings, and crazy armament. Another crazy thing about this plane is that it is still in service with the Lebanese Air Force. But onto the specs, the Hunter F1 top speed is 1,107 kilometers an hour. That's the fastest plane in game, and its rate of climb is 37.6 meters a second. And if that's not to get you excited, this plane has 430 mils. I think this is the first Ally plane in game to have 30 mils, so another Easter egg. That means new sound as well. However, one of the drawbacks for the 30 mil cannon is that it is an ADEN cannon, ADEN cannon, which fires a slow velocity round, so it might be a big change from the 20 mils that most UK jet pilots are used to using. Now we're on to the bombers. This next plane looks super goofy, but because it first flew in 1936, I kind of understand. But this is the Hampton, a twin-engine bomber, aka the flying suitcase, as its crew conditions were very cramped. This plane's top speed was 397 kilometers an hour, not really that impressive, but still in 1936, so we can kind of understand. But looking a bit more into the specs, the armament isn't that bad at all. With 1 forward-firing 30 cal to take out AA and 3 to 5 defensive Vickers K machine guns, this plane might be able to put up a fight. Also, the 1,814 kilogram single bomb is an awesome bomb load for what I believe will be a low-tier bomber. Ah, this is a resemblance of the future Lancaster. This is the Avro Manchester, which is basically a baby Lancaster. Doesn't it look so cute, guys? Look at it. Oh, but guys, hear my words. This thing is dangerous. With having 8 30 cals for defensive measures and a bomb load of 4,695 kilograms, this is one cute SOB you don't want to mess with. The Halifax Heavy Bomber. Now this plane looks like a B-24 if you will, or just for the record, the B-24 looks like the Halifax just because the Halifax had its first flight before the B-24. But anyways, I don't think this bomber will be dangerous like the Avro Manchester. Even though it has 8 30 cals for defense, the thing that might make this bomber hard to use is that it has a bigger bomb load, close to 6,000 kilograms. So this thing might be tiered up against some pretty mean German fighters, but we'll just have to wait and see. Next up is the Sterling Heavy Bomber, which was the first 4-engine British bomber of World War II. The Sterling was the biggest of the British heavy bombers, comparing the Lancaster and Halifax. The Sterling was bigger in length and height. The main reason why the Sterling wasn't used more, even though it had a great bomb load and a decent defense, was because of the poor performance and low service ceiling it had, and that basically made way for the Lancaster and Halifax to take its job. The English Electric Canberra. I'm excited about this plane, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty much an English Arado, and who doesn't love the Arado, honestly? Alright, but one thing that made me sad is that we are getting the Mark II version, which was the first production version. However, this one does not include the 420 mils like the Canberra BI-6. The thing that gave this plane the claim to fame in its time is that it set a world altitude record of 21,430 meters in 1957. So with that information, it's not our Mark II, but still with that performance, this jet could avoid any early jet interceptors. The last and certainly not least plane, the Sunderland, my most anticipated plane of the British release tree. As you guys know, I have hard-ons for big planes and boats. If that makes you uncomfortable, deal with it. But this plane is a beast of a boat plane, seriously. It had 18 defensive armaments, 16 30 cals and 2 50 cals. Oh my Lanta. Like, what tier would this plane be at? If anything gets close to it, it's going to die. I think with the release of the Sunderland, we will have non-stop fun with boat planes in War Thunder, because if you count them, we have the Sunderland for the UK, PBY for the US, the MBR-2 for Russia, the H6K4 and H8K for Japan. Sorry Germany, maybe one day. But with all joking aside, they need to add the Spruce Goose for the Americans. Seriously. Alright guys, that is it with this series. We have finished the Germans, the Americans, the Japanese, the Russians, and now finally the British. It's been a lot of work, and I'm glad you guys enjoy these videos. If you have loved this series, leave a like, as it makes my day. That's it for me guys. I'm signing off. Until next time, peace out.